Happy Sunday. Hopefully, everyone's having an awesome day. Hopefully, everyone's having an awesome day because I certainly am. Doing very little. Did go shopping at a hardware store. Actually, two hardware stores. I went to my Lowe's and a Home Depot to look for some concrete pavers to build out a deck for my shed. Wasn't able to find what I was looking for, so when I was at not one Home Depot, but one Lowe's, didn't normally go to the Lowe's I normally go to. Went to a different one. I noticed it had some blackberries for sale. Blackberry plants, so I picked up some of that. Agave, and there's one other one I forget. Oh, and I think I got four bushes, trees, and I forget what the other one was. A fig tree. I got me a fig tree. Along with the two fig trees, I also got myself two basils and a serrano pepper. Share that on my Twitters, but wasn't really able to find what I was looking for. But either way, I did come back with something. Also, two wicker baskets. I guess you could call them wicker baskets. Set them all up, got them all planted. That's how my yesterday went. And today I went grocery shopping or hunting at my local HEB. Picked up some food to put in the freezer. That's how my day is, and I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but it should be interesting. Unfortunately, I am doing the show solo, so my co-host is not here. Haven't heard from him in a couple of days. Hopefully, he's doing all right. Um, there's always next week. Let's go ahead and start off with the traditional. If I can get back, oh, there we go. If I can get back to my screen. Let's see here. Let's go here. Let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and do a little more full screen. So Sunday night Shats episode number 6. And yes, I know I skipped number 5. I did 2 number 4s in a row. But that's all right. The sub count is currently at 68. Oh, do these have to reload? Yeah. It's totally at 68. I did get +3 in the last 28 days. So thank you. Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. I appreciate that. Appreciate the support. I know I'm probably not the best YouTuber out here or the most polished, but I'm making an attempt. I can always try to get better, and hopefully that brings in more people. So 68. The next, so now we're going to go through with our topics. Going to go a little over Joe Biden's speech. We also got our first Atlantic Hurricane Danielle. Second one might be coming. Of course, we got ranked choice voting in Alaska. And good news with the monkeypox cases. They're actually down. So that's really awesome to hear. But let's go ahead and start off with a couple of pictures. You got President Biden down below, and you got Trump on top. You got nice, warm colors on top, very darkish, reddish, evilish, ominous colors on the bottom. And this is just going off of the pictures themselves. And of course, here's another picture. You got Hitler, you got Stalin, you got China, and then you also got Joe Biden with similar color. Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was very ominous, very in poor taste. And I even think this is kind of lightening it up some. What they're showing is not the actual image. I don't think it makes it any better. And the reason why I say that because according to the BBC, here's a wider edge. I mean, that still looks pretty tight. Don't get me wrong. I'm not dissing the color scheme. I'm just dissing it for a presidential speech. This is something that you'll see out of like V from Vendetta or another type of movie to that similar. And of course, I'm going to read a little bit about this. Joe Biden made a short flight from Washington to Philadelphia on Thursday to try to reframe this November's midterm elections choice as not about him, but about choosing between the Democratic freedoms and the Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. I mean, who doesn't want to make America great? Or make even America great? Or make America better? Who doesn't want their country better? MAGA Republicans do not represent the Constitution, says Mr. Biden. They kind of do. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do. They're working right now as I speak, state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to the voters. He, he's probably talking about the voter IDs and making sure our votes do count, that they're not diluted through fraudulent votes, making sure that we minimize voter fraud. And I do think there was voter fraud in the last election. Now it's debatable whether or not it was enough to sway the election. And the reason why I'm so confident to say that there's election fraud in the last election is because there's always voter fraud. Now the question is it going to be a 1%, 3%, 5%, or is it below a percent? There's always some cases coming around shortly after every election. And what a lot of Republicans want to do is make sure that it's more secure, that they could catch these fraudulent votes before they get counted. But he's not painting it that way. He's got to paint it as these racist ID laws. Man, someone's mowing their yard. Well, oh well. Hopefully you can't hear it. If you can, let me know. So pretty much, MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. I mean, a lot of MAGA people are for the Second Amendment. That's respecting the Constitution. Something that California and New York really don't care about. Says Mr. Biden, they do not believe in the rule of law. They're working right now as I speak, state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine the democracy itself. There's always going to be election deniers. It doesn't even matter if your guy wins. There's going to be people there who are going to say the election was rigged. We said this well, we didn't say this, but we heard this from the other side when Trump was won, that he was a legitimate. The only way he could have won is through fraud. Russia got him elected. They hacked our systems. Yada, 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 yeah. We heard this all before. And this is why I'm a little hesitant to say that Joe Biden wasn't elected with the will of the people. I'm a little reluctant to say that he's a illegitimate president because I've heard the arguments from the left when Trump was elected. And I just don't want to be one of those people that says what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So therefore, only way he could get elected is through fraud. Now, I do think that there was some news that came out that was being withheld that helped Joe Biden win. But we don't know. There's people like Sam Harris that thinks the ends justify the means. But he's actually already walking back this statement, by the way, Joe Biden is. So he says earlier Thursday, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters that Mr. Biden's speech is not going to be political, but it was political, but it was decidedly political. Although Biden know that he was not criticizing mainstream Republicans, the uniparty, the Republicans of the older days, the old guard that went along with Democrats. The mainstream Republicans, he said, he can work with, but he added that the party is currently dominated, driven intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. He said that these Republicans view the mob that attacked the Capitol 6 in January, on 6 January, January 6th, not as insurrections who place a dagger at the throat of our democracy, but look at them as patriots. Well, I do think that they're patriots. I think their voices were not heard. Same thing with the BLM and Antifa riots. Their voices weren't heard, and they felt that was their only choice is violence. Now, do I think what those people did was right? Absolutely not. I gotta give a credit to them that they actually did storm the place where most of our problems are. A lot of the issues with the black community is derived from a crime bill that Joe Biden brags about that he got passed. A lot of their issues comes from that bill. I'm not saying that all of the issues or the majority of their issues come from that bill, but a large portion of it comes from that bill that he wrote and got passed. Now, do I think that they're Yeah, I do think they're patriots only because they're Americans. I don't want to go after voters. I'd rather go after politicians. And if a politician convinces you to vote for them, when we've been telling you that this person is up to no good, then he's a really good politician that convinced people to vote for him. We should go after the politicians and not the voters. And this is kind of what Biden is doing. Now, I don't think BLM or Antifa are any more patriotic or any less patriotic than the idiots that stormed the Capitol on January the 6th. I think it's very unfortunate, but I think the issue is that the people feel like they're not being heard, and when people feel like they're not being heard, they're going to rise up and cause a ruckus. But he's continuing on this speech. And it's all the Democrats are continuing on this. They're labeling they're labeling MAGA movement as domestic terrorism, and I just don't agree with that. There's more of a case for Black Lives Matter or Antifa that actually destroyed cities, left them in ruin. Now, when I say destroy or ruin, I'm not saying all of the city was destroyed or ruined, but there was a good portion of the city that was ruined. And there's a lot of people that lost their livelihood. And when I say livelihood, I don't mean their lives, but a lot of people did lose their lives. A lot of these people were private business owners that lost their business. And they lost their business because their business got burnt down and they couldn't afford to rebuild. But there's maybe a case where they're not very patriotic. But yeah, we actually had a summer of love leading up to the election where Trump was trying to get law and order in hand, begging governors to call up the National Guard, and they refused. They said, we're not going to be part of your tyrant government, although it's the part of the government to keep its people safe, and they failed to do that. I could go on but complaining and moaning about how crappy our situation is, but just know, as crappy as it is now, it's only going to get better. It's going to get better. I mean, sure, it may get a little bit worse, but things are going to get better. Trust me on that one. It may take us a couple years, but there is hope. Now on for my next story. Tropical storm Earl expected to become a hurricane. Danielle spins in the North Atlantic. So, a little. I guess I should start with the Wikipedia page. So there's currently been 5 tropical disturbances or tropical storms. Only one of them is considered a Category 1 hurricane, and it really hasn't made landfall. You got Earl, which is going to be the 5th one. Let's see here, minimum deaths 9. Yeah, that's actually not too bad. So there's been a total of 5 systems for this year. This year's kind of kicked off kind of whimperish. At least if you're only following the Atlantic hurricane season. The reason why I say that is here is the world view of that. You got the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season. There's been a total of 5 systems formed, 5 names. The damages are unknown yet. You got the Pacific hurricane season. I did not know the Pacific actually had hurricanes, but there's been a total of 11 systems formed, 11 got names, and a total of, unfortunately, 15 deaths. And then get your 2022 Pacific typhoon season, which is a total of 18 storms formed and 11 named, less than $100 million in damage. Then you got your 2022 North Indian Ocean cyclone season, which is a total of 9 storms and one being named. Then I could just go on, but you get the picture. It's not necessarily just Atlanta, which is what we mainly focus on here in the United States, because that's where most of our hurricanes happen is along the Atlantic coast of the United States. So we're more heavily invested from it. But so when you just see so far 5 storms have been found or been formed, it's only a small portion of the world's event. And that's something I did not do with the video I did probably a month ago, month and a half ago, where I have the information available. I just didn't click on the information to understand that it's not just the Atlantic that we have to worry about. We have to worry about the whole world when it comes to these storms. And we're still on par for the season. This isn't a normally slow season when you bring the whole world into view. We're just slicing into the Atlantic. And for Atlantic, we're actually slightly below average or right at average. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the season plays out. So, Tropical Storm Earl will curl northward into the western Atlantic after forming a day after Danielle broke nearly 2 months gap in the tropical activity. Earl and Daniela will likely remain far from land before Danielle and Earl, the last tropic system to develop, was Tropical Storm Colin before Independence Day. This increase in activity comes just a week before the statistical peak of the hurricane season and the fourth and fifth names of the season from August 15th and August 22. On average, respectively, on average, respectively, uh, Tropical Storm Earl has begun to intensify northeast of Puerto Rico and is now expected to become a hurricane. Early form late Friday evening after hurricane hunters found a closed center and winds of 40 miles late Friday. Since then, Earl has been fighting with wind shear and lopsided system. Much of the thunderstorm activity is being pushed eastward from the system. Despite this, slow intensifying is expected. There are 2 roadblocks that are slowing the development of the system now. One factor is dry air, and the other is continued unfavorable upper level winds. In additional, or some additional showers and thunderstorms are possible from Puerto Rico to Barbados this weekend. Between 2 to 4 inches of rainfall are expected, with isolations of a total of 6 inches. Rip currents and rough surfs are also possible. I wonder if that means that the people that do surfboarding, I wonder if they're hopping on the plane and heading here because they like to ride the large waves. The system will likely turn more northward into the western Atlantic with time through a weakness that developed on its high pressure steering wheel. Intensifying is likely as it moves northward away from the Caribbean, and Earl could reach hurricane status after Labor Day. Earl would be the second hurricane of the season, significantly strengthening The possibility by midweek, this should allow it to pass well off the southeast U.S. coast, but we'll be watching closely for any changes to that thinking. It's possible a high surf and rip currents generated from the system could reach the southeast U.S. coast after Labor Day. Let's see here. And now this one's for North Atlantic Hurricane Danielle. Danielle became 2022 first hurricane in the Atlantic Basin on Friday, but has since fluctuated in intensity. It poses no land threat as it's meandering into the North Atlantic in the next several days. Danielle is over 900 miles west of Azores. Is it Azores or Azores? Or a little more than halfway between southeast Newfoundland and the Azores in the northern Atlantic Ocean. It currently remains adrift near where it was formed. Fortunately, Danielle's is only hazard to shipping routes and is no threat to land as it meanders in the next few days, then begins to slow to a crawl towards northeast. Danielle could weaken itself as it upwells cooler weather over the next day or two due to slowing motions. And even the hurricanes don't even want to come to the United States right now. This is the only seventh year of the satellite era since 1966 that the season's first hurricane has waited until September. The last year that happened was 2013. Both 20 and 13 and 2002, the season of the first hurricane didn't arrive until September 11th, the longest wait for any season in satellite era. This snaps the strings of 4 straight years in which hurricanes arrived in July 2021 that happened exactly 2 months earlier than this year when Elsa briefly came a Cat 1 hurricane on July 2. 1 year ago, Larry became the 2021 season's fifth hurricane early in September. Feeding on extremely warm ocean water, Danielle also became a hurricane unusually far north, according to Tomelberg, an atmospheric science PhD student at the University of Oklahoma. On Thursday, Danielle became the first Atlantic name since Colin on July 3rd, and the following an exceptional rare August without any named storms in the basin, the hurricane season quietest start in 34 years. Check back us at weather.com for updates as forecasts can quickly change in these peak months of hurricane season. It's a good time to make sure you have a plan in place in case of a hurricane. Information about hurricane preparedness can be found here. I am in no worry of a hurricane. While I do live on a coastal country or a coastal state, chances of a hurricane coming to Austin would be very rare. We might see like a super storm Sandy type scenario where it might reach Austin, but I think that's the best we're going to do. So I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts about the hurricane seasons. Of course, let's see here. Let's go ahead and do it this one from the New York Times. Yeah. Who cares? I'm almost out free. Mary Platona won by appealing to Alaskans' interests and electoral independent streak, but Alaska's new voting system played a big role too. Sarah Palin lost a shot at the House seat, but she has a second chance in November. Mary Platala will be the first Alaskan native in Congress. I wonder where Sarah Palin's from. Wait, never mind. I know what they're talking about. It's first Alaskan native, as in Native American, family roots from Alaska before we came over, or the Russians came over. So Mary Platola, whose victory in a special election on Wednesday makes her the first Democratic in nearly a half century to represent Alaska in the House, won the contest for the remainder of the Representative Don Young's term with an unbeat campaign that appealed to Alaskans' interest in the electoral independent streak. But Alaska's new voting system also played a big role into Miss Petrola, 3 percentage point victory over former Governor Sarah Palin and her Republican opponent. Miss Patella, who will become the first Alaska Native to serve in Congress and the first woman to hold the House seat, or maybe that particular House seat, won at least in part because the voters had more choices, while more voters initially picked a Republican candidate. That didn't matter given the second choice. Many Republican voters opted for a Democrat, Miss Patella, over Miss Palin. Speaking to reports Wednesday night, Miss Palin criticized the new voting system as weird. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas called the system a scam to rig elections against Republicans, but proponents of the system, like Alaska, said this is how it's supposed to work. When voters have more choices, they're less likely to vote strict party lines, reducing polarization and giving the independent minded or more centrist candidate a better shot. But at least this, I think, this is the first real election for Alaska as they went to ranked choice voting. And my initial thought is I don't like this voting system. I really don't. And if it comes on the ballot for Texas, I'm probably going to vote no. And the reason, well, there's a few reasons why I don't like it. One is the Democrats are pushing for it hard. And if the Democrats are pushing for it hard, they're up to something. The other reason why I don't like it is because it's something new. Now, this could be something better. I am willing to concede if people of Texas speaks and votes for this in, I would give it a couple of chances before just ragging on it. But my understanding is Palin didn't get the initial 50%, so it went down to second choice, and that's where the Democrats won is with the second choice that got her over the 50% threshold. And I still don't exactly understand it. That's the best that I could come up with from what little I've been able to read on it. So, according to Ballotpedia, which I'm pretty sure is a wonderful source, a ranked choice voting (RCV) is an electoral system which voters rank candidates by preferences on their ballot. If a candidate wins the majority at first preference voter, he or she is declared the winner. If no candidate wins the majority of the first preference vote, the candidates with the fewest first preferences vote is eliminated. The first preference votes cast for the failed candidates are eliminated, leaving the second preferred choices instead of the or choices indicated on the ballot. A new tally is conducted to determine whether any candidate has won a majority of the adjusted vote. The process is repeated until the candidate wins outright majority. The section below for more additional information on the topics. Let's go ahead with the background. How ranked choice voting works. Broadly speaking, the ranked choice voting process unfolds as following a single winner elections. Voter ranks the candidates for a given office by preferences on their ballot. If a candidate wins outright majority, their first preference votes, i.e., 50% plus one, he or she will be declared the winner. If, on the other hand, no candidates win outright majority on the first preference, the candidates with the fewer first preference votes is eliminated. At first preferences, the votes for the failed candidates are eliminated, lifting the second preference choice indicated those on the ballots. A new tally is conducted to determine if any candidate has won outright with the adjusted votes. So this pretty much is what happened to Palin. Palin was, let's say, 46, and this is a candidate, and it just that gets dropped. A new tally is done, and then it gets repeated until one of the candidates. The pros to this is we eliminate primaries, allegedly getting rid of primaries, or a good way to handle them because you can have like 10 people, and then after this, you're down to 2 people. And I think the way California has it is limited where you have your ranked choice to get the 2 people that are going to be running in the general election. That seems a little bit more in favor of ranked choice, but they're not getting rid of the general election. Let's see here. What does California say? It's not completely over, but according to this site, Great Brook, I'm pretty sure this is kind of repetitive. Let's see here. Today, when you cast a ballot, you vote for one person for an office. For the moment, let's put that aside. Some elections where multiple people are elected, generally, whoever wins the plurality of votes wins the election. In some situations, the majority votes is required to win. If no one gets the majority in the first round, the second runoff election is held among the top 2 finishers with ranked choice voting. The second round is unnecessary. Under a ranked choice voting system, the ballot would have multiple columns representing first choice, second choice, third choice. The voter selects a candidate with various choice levels. For example, Cynthia, my first choice, Sam was my second choice, Pat as my third choice. Let's say the vote totals a percentage of 42 for Sam, Pat for 37, and Cynthia for 21. Today's typical voting process, either Sam wins or there's a runoff between Sam and Pat. Under ranked choice voting, ballots are voted for. Cynthia will get who got the lowest first choice, total examine their second choice. For example, let's say Sam 42 plus 5% makes him 47, unless it's her. Pat, which is 53. The design problems with ranked choice. As noted, ranked choice voting website, voters have some important instructions to follow. Here's some important points to correctly making the ranked choice ballot. Make only one choice per column. Do not skip columns. You may rank as few candidates as you would like. You may rank as many candidates as you are allowed to. These instructions point out some shortcomings of ranked choice voting. Survey designer. As a survey designer, I never use so-called force rank questions. This question type tries to measure the rank importance as factors of some outcome. We might ask respondents, what drove your decision to purchase product X? Please indicate the importance. Blah, 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 blah. The administrative dilemma, given that some of the ballots will be filled out incorrectly, and many will. What does the election bureau do with these ballots? The state of Maine has 11 slide PowerPoint deck to help educate voters. The last few slides show how the states have decided to handle incorrect ballots. Someone has to decide this, but at some point, aren't we looking for dimple ballots or counting chads? We would want the election to decide by those who redeem ballots and how those rules will be decided. Due to people through their legislative representatives to vote on them? Question mark. A friend of Maine, a friend of mine in Maine, a friend of mine in Maine, which uses ranked choice voting, told me that he screwed up his ballot for the first time in his life. Electronic voting systems may have safeguards that will prevent these mistakes, but then we increase the annoyance factor of the error message that will lead to someone just skipping or skip voting. I would suggest that the annoyance and the error issues be particularly true for older voters who facilitate or who has faculties that have been lessened by times. My dad was a electrical engineer with 25 patents to his name. I saw his logic skills deteriorate later in life. Very sad. He would have trouble with the system in his later years. Does this system discriminate against such voters? And remember that voting method has to be ADA compliant, Americans with Disability Act. Like I said, the reason why I'm not really for this because it's changing the rules. Now, if my state decides to vote to implement these rules, I'll definitely give it a try. I'll definitely see how it plays out. And we may actually be a better state because of that. I do acknowledge that there's appeal to it. There's appeal to change because we would want progress for our country, but we don't want progress for the sake of progress, is what my counter argument would be. I don't know. Does anyone have any experiences with ranked choice voting? Do you know any pros and cons? Do you think this is just a Democrat way to get more wins in the election? And keep in mind that there's actually cases where the Republicans were in the minority. Through this system, they have actually won their position. So it actually goes both ways. It's really how you market yourself and how you actually get the votes. But I also want to end this on a positive note. I think I pretty much described or had a wide range of topics. Very little of them are related. So, monkeypox cases are on the decline in New York City's data show. The seventh day rolling average has fallen from 50 to 9 in 2 weeks. That's awesome. Monkeypox cases appeared to be on the decline in the epicenter of the country's outbreak. Data from New York Department of Health and Mental Hygiene shows of August 30th, the latest date which data is available. The Big Apple record a 7-day rolling average of 9 infections. That is an 82% decline from a 7-day rolling average of 50 recorded 2 weeks ago. Since the outbreak began in mid May, no state or city has recorded more monkeypox cases than New York. So a drop in infection could be a prediction of what is to come for the rest of the country. The good news is monkeypox is declining. Dr. Roy Gulick, chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases at Cornell University Wheal Medical College. Is it Wheal or Wheel? I don't know. Told ABC News globally it is declining and across the United States, but being really led by major cities, and we have seen it right here in New York. Even as the U.S. approaches 20,000 total infections nationwide, trends appear to show a drop according to the data from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. As of August 31st, the seventh day rolling average of cases in the U.S. sits at 281, the lowest number recorded since July 25th. According to the ABC News analyst of CDC data, the outbreak has primarily been concentrated in men who have sex with men, a group that includes people who identify as gay, bisexual, transgender, non binary, although health officials have said anyone, regardless of sexual orientation, is at risk if they have direct contact with an infected patient. Health experts say men who fall into this category have been likely doing a good job following the doctor's advice and proper precautionary measures. A joint survey from the CDC, Emory University, and Johns Hopkins University found about one half of gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men reduced their number of sexual partners. Their number of one time anonymous partners have reduced their use of dating apps. which is awesome to hear. I'm glad that we're finally getting a total on it, or not total, a handle on it. I'm glad that the message is coming out to don't be a hoe, because when you sleep around, these things tend to happen. And I'm glad that there's people out there that are advocating to have responsible relations with other people, because that also helps keeps this particular disease at hand. Now, I do know that this is a cousin of smallpox, and that was not deemed to be a STD or STI or STD. Now, I know that there's reports out there saying that certain fluids also contain it, and it's also how it was spreading. But I still think it's part of that same family. It's spreading the same way, and hopefully, it's not going to be smallpox 2.0, and hopefully people could get this under control. And it just goes the same way as the H1N1 or H1B1 flu that happened under Obama. So that is my live stream. Unfortunately, no one's sent any comments. I don't think anyone's watched, but it is okay. I mean, actually, I have one current viewer, according to the studio from YouTube. So if you're watching, thanks for watching. If you watch this after I recorded, thank you for watching. Hopefully, you hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment down below on what you thought of any of the topics I talked about. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful Labor Day Monday.